So interestingly, the reading from the epistle is pretty brutal. All the saints conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, and some were tortured, refusing to accept release that they may rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and scourging. And so in the gospel reading, you hear, everyone who acknowledges me before men, I will also acknowledge them before my Father who is in heaven. One of the things that we're not necessarily aware of is that on June 10th, so we're a little bit past that, but I thought it was appropriate for today, is we celebrate, in an Orthodox sense, the martyrdom of the 40 holy martyrs in China, which was Peking at the time. A lot of people are not aware of the fact that many times the saints are not just from Greece, or they're not just from Russia, but they are from all over. And so for this particular area, it was settled by the Russians in 1685. So there had been an Orthodox presence in China since 1685. There was a mission there was a monastery, and there were priests that were sent there from Russia. In 1855, Chang Yuhua, who would become Saint Mitrophan, he became ordained at 25 as an Orthodox priest. And so he was sent to open up a mission, and then he was sent to establish a parish. The problem is that the time that he was given this was just before the turn of the 20th century. So right around like 10 or so years before 1900s. At this time in China, there was quite a rebellion against the Western influence that was seen as contaminating the culture of China. Okay, and we've seen this in other cultures too, where a force comes in and their culture overrides the existing culture that is there. The Greeks are extremely familiar with this because the Ottomans now brought that Turkish culture on top of what we had and denied us our culture. And here you have the same thing now, is you have now the West, specifically Europe, coming in and then instilling their value system and using that area of China. So there was, as you would figure with the Greeks against the Turks, there was also then rebellion against those not occupying, but those forces that were there. And this became what is known as the Boxer Rebellion. And so the Boxers were the Chinese, the young men who now, and women, who wanted to restore China to its original culture, and they wanted to roust out all of the West. And one of the victims of this was Father Mitrophan and his parish. And so they came in during the Boxer Rebellion around 1900, and they came and they burned his church down. And then after that, he went and hid all of his parishioners, 40 of them, plus his wife and his 3 kids, hid them in the house. And the Boxers came, they found him, they executed Father Mitrophan, they tortured his wife and all of his children, and then all of the parishioners there tortured them and then killed them. And so on June 10th, we honor the fact that saints of the Orthodox Church come from many, many different places. And they don't come from 1,000 years ago. They come from history that we can actually remember and that our parents and our grandparents were alive to have witnessed or to at least have known of. And so this celebration in the Orthodox sense of the Holy 40 Martyrs of China is speaking directly now to what Christ says here. And he says, everyone who acknowledges me before men, I will acknowledge before the Father. And then he goes on to say, he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And this is exactly what you have in Father Mitrophan, because he knew and he died first. He knew that his family was going to be tortured and going to be executed. So this is the height of martyrdom. Am I saying that this is what all of us are supposed to do? No. Nobody is supposed to do it, but you may be called to it at certain times. We've certainly seen it in our history here in America that we've had many people who have been martyred in the name of Christ. So what happened 1,000 years ago is not just a memory, but it's something that has happened in our century and also happens then in modern times. And we need to be aware of the distinct and very difficult calling of Christianity. This is not a faith for those who are weak. All right? It requires great strength and it requires great courage. Now, that's not to say that some people have, their faith is not quite developed, okay, and that they need some kind of push to increase their faith. And from personal experience, trust me, God will offer you that suffering. And that's why the Orthodox embrace suffering, not self-imposed suffering, but the suffering that naturally comes from a sinful and fallen world. And the lesson from that is that Christ is always there and always beside us. He didn't promise us no suffering, but he promised us peace through that suffering. And that's what we celebrate here with St. Mitrophan and his family.